The kids from Happy Days are out on their own. Joanie and Chachi, Young Love grows into a new series.
Do you take requests?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Marry me.
They're in Chicago with Chachi's mom and the surprising new man about the house.
Uncle Rico, my husband Al.
They've got a new band.
Chachi, yeah, you got big. You got cute. You got a manager?
Their very own show.
Delvecchio is proud to present Chachi Arcola and Joanie Cunningham.
Those happy kids are the ones you love. Premiering this month, it's Joanie Loves Chachi.
Exactly right.
This year, give your gifts that extra touch. Duracell batteries. They make holiday fun last longer than regular carbon batteries.
You think of everything, even Duracell batteries. Oh, and Duracell, too. What a nice touch.
Oh,
Wow, it's neat.
try it out. I put in Duracell batteries.
Duracell. The extra touch that makes holiday fun last longer.
Thursday, an hour of Christmas cheer, starting with a Pac-Man special.
Woo-woo!
And a primetime first.
We'll save Christmas.
Christmas comes to Pac-Land. Then, the whole family stranded on Christmas Eve. Joanie Loves Chachi. Thursday.
Sitcom, all ye faithful, a Christmas podcast special. And for the fifth time I discussed 25 Christmas sitcom episodes. Please come and listen as we count down to Christmas. You should see Mr. Wilson, Tom Hanks, and Danny Thomas. Sherman Helmsley will return, and we head back to Springfield. We're definitely spending Christmas in Springfield.
Christmas!
There's something magic in the way you hold me in your eyes. No one ever warned me love just takes you by surprise. I don't know what's come over me. You got me hypnotized when you look at me. You look at me as soft as any touch could be, and suddenly there's magic when you look at me. Happy Saturday, everybody, and welcome back to Sitcom, Are Ye Faithful? Can you tell that I have the house to myself? I'm projecting. I'm louder. I'm not whispering. I probably won't be yawning because it's only around noontime, so there's at least a pretty good chance that I won't yawn. You never know. But I am here. I am happy. I am ready to talk more Christmas sitcoms. It's December 13th, which means for the 13th day in a row, I am here talking about a Christmas sitcom to each and every one of you. And for the past 4 years, my tradition was to end every year with a Happy Days Christmas episode. And this year, that isn't possible because there were only 4. I'm shocked. I would have assumed there were 10. I would have assumed there was one every year, 11. Nope. We had some Thanksgiving episodes, but, well, at least one I know with Pilgrims. But as far as I can tell, as far as I see, there were only 4 Christmas episodes. I'm learning things today about Happy Days that I didn't even know. And I consider that one of my favorite sitcoms of all time, possibly my favorite sitcom of all time. Not that it's the best, it's just the most, it is the warm blanket of my youth. And it's like maybe some of it was from a first run, but a lot of it was like 6:05 p.m. on the TBS Superstation, back to back Fonzie. And a lot of it was then watching, discovering it later on, rediscovering it, I should say, in reruns when I didn't have my job yet, or I watched a ton of it in college because we only had so many stations that came in, and it would come on right around the time that I was, after dinner going back to my dorm to do homework like a responsible student. And then there were also when I first got my first DVR we were living in Florida. We didn't have a really big social life. Not that it's a huge social life now, but this was pre-social media, pre-easy talking to people over video. We lasted 11 months in Florida. I talked about that already recently. I've talked about that a lot over the years. That's literally 20 years ago now. And when I got the DVR, the first thing I found was that Happy Days was on like all night. So I was recording tons of episodes then too. That's when I realized the series finale of the show, brought me to tears, and I'll watch it again and it'll bring me to tears. And when they show this montage and Howard looks right in the camera and says, "To Happy Days," and he's celebrating the marriage of his daughter. Ooh, that is really Boston. The marriage of his daughter, Joanie, to Chachi Arcola. But what I learned today is that series finale was not the last episode. In fact, I couldn't believe it. I was like, well, when did they come back? I was looking up different actors when they left the show and when they came back. And I found out today that there were 5 episodes that aired after the series finale, quote unquote. They were never aired, so they got burned off over the summer. So you'd be like, it's over, they're married. And then over the summer, you're like, Chachi has diabetes? That's one of the episodes. And then I think another one is an Easter one. There's a famous picture, well, to me it's famous, of Fonzie in an Easter bunny costume. I've used it multiple times on social. And apparently that was during that time as well. That might have been the last episode over the summer. Imagine watching Seinfeld or Friends or Cheers or How I Met Your Mother, a show you watched for years, almost a decade. And then you're like, it's over, I can't believe it. And they're like, and here's 5 episodes we forgot to air or didn't air or for whatever reason, and now you can watch them over the summer. I'd be excited to see these. It would also feel a little anticlimactic. It's like, well, we know if there's any trouble in paradise between Chachi and Joanie, everything's going to be fine because we know in the end that Chachi loves Joanie and Joanie loves Chachi. Oh, but I'm not there yet. No. I also found out today something very interesting. Spinoffs. Spinoffs are a big deal in television. If a show is popular enough, they'll either do one or two things. They'll take some of the characters off that show and they'll give them their own show, like Frasier, like Phyllis, like Lisa Bonet's character, Denise Huxtable. What else do we get? We get ones that don't work as much, that aren't on very long, like Joey. And we get some shows, the characters go off and make their own, have their own adventures. Sometimes we have characters that just come in for a moment and it's like, what is this character? Oh, you can now find them on their own show. Or a character that kind of takes off. They're a little different and then they go off and make their own show. And Happy Days had all of that. They had the big ones where one day an alien shows up in Milwaukee and next thing you know, Mork and Mindy is born. Then you have, is it Richie and Ralph? Or is it Richie and Fonzie? I don't remember. Or is it Richie and Potsy? It's Richie, I know for that. They go on a double date with these 2 girls named Laverne and Shirley. And both of them were like, hey, how you doing? We're real tough. We're tough chicks. And then all of a sudden, boom, they get their own show. And, their characters are tweaked a little different. And we have Laverne and Shirley, or as they said in the early years, Laverne DeFazio and Shirley Feeney. Yes, I believe that was the title of the show. And then you'll get a show where you get characters that you'd never even heard of that show up for a moment. It's Howard's cousin, the Bounty quicker picker-upper lady, Rosie from the Bounty commercials. And now she's off having her own show that's technically a spinoff called Blank Seas Beauties. It lasted 13 episodes and I looked it up. They don't have a Christmas episode, so there isn't another chance for me to live in the Happy Days world and have another Happy Days, thematic sort of quasi Happy Days Christmas episode, except for today. Because today, and I'm not even counting, there's another episode where I guess an angel shows up after he starts his own show and then he shows up as a character on Happy Days. No, I'm sorry. I didn't know about that until today. And today is really focused on not the best spinoff from Happy Days, possibly, maybe not the worst, because I never saw Blank Sea's Beauties, but it is, I think, the most infamous one. It's the one, it's almost like a cautionary tale of taking a character and giving them their own show. But what's interesting is when I looked up Blank Sea's Beauties, say that 5 times fast, I said, oh, who was on this show besides Rosie from the Bounty commercials? And it turns out that Pat Morita played Arnold in all 13 episodes. Arnold moved over to Blank Sea's Beauties in 1977. Are you kidding me? Now, is that when Al came in? They put Arnold, out to pasture over to some spinoff. But here's where my jaw hit the floor. Also in this show, the third build is none other than the late, great Eddie Mecca. Yes, Carmine, the big ragu himself, the guy who never quite made it to Fonzie level, but they tried. Carmine. So obviously Gary Marshall loved these actors because he brought Eddie Mecca in. He's like, it's not going to work out, but I have this other show with my sister that I think you should be on. That's my my Gary Marshall impression. And then there was another young guy. I don't know if he played Eddie Mecca's younger brother. His name was Anthony DeLuca, and the actor Scott Baio. So apparently this is right before Chachi showed up on Happy Days. Scott Baio was in another Gary Marshall produced show. I'm only assuming this is Gary Marshall produced because it's a Happy Days spinoff. So Arnold then comes back and sees this guy and he goes, you look a lot like a guy that I spent time with at this, what is she doing? A hotel for showgirls. What? Oh, she manages hotel showgirls while providing a home for her nephew, dancer Joey, and a 12-year-old junior womanizer named Anthony. Oh, those are her nephews. So that's, oh my God. So in a weird way, Chachi is already related to Howard because she's Howard Cunningham's cousin, and that's his nephew. So wow. And Howard never said, you remind me of my cousin's nephew. You look just like him. Wah, wah, wah. Wow. I'm learning things as we go along, too, as the show. Like, I just saw that maybe 2 minutes before I hit record, but I had to mention it. It's a long way to say I haven't even got to what today's show is. The infamous Joanie Loves Chachi. Gary Marshall said, we need to come up with a show. We need another vehicle for these. We have a great idea. Chachi's going to be a big star. Joanie, you go with him because you're his love interest. All right, but what's the show about? Well, you love him, so we got to come up with a title. Well, all we know, what's the premise of the show? The premise of the show is Joanie Loves Chachi. Someone wrote that down accidentally in the title line, and they were like, oh, wait, that's the title of the show. Well, what's the premise of the show? This is where I did not remember the premise of this show. I said, I knew they went somewhere else and they were like a musical act. And I only knew that because of the beautiful, yes, I remember, like, that theme song brings back like quasi memories of childhood. Like, I can't say I remembered all the lyrics or anything like that, but it's just like that. It's like a small, tiny memory in the back of your brain. I'm like, wait, I kind of remember that song, and I remember that opening, and I remember Joanie Loves Chachi, and I knew that they moved to Chicago to become, to be musicians. I thought maybe they worked as a lounge act. I think maybe they did, but what I didn't remember is that Al went with them. So I think this is when Arnold comes back to Happy Days, because Al is gone in 1982, or at least in the last couple seasons. Al moves out and goes to Chicago. And I thought maybe Al just went to tag along. No. Al married Chachi's mother. I have no memory of that. So her character on the show is Luisa Arcola Del Vecchio. Now, I ask you, she's like, she kept the name of her ex-husband, Arcola. Like, yes, okay, you have the same name as your son. I get that. Chachi has his father's name, I suppose. But you didn't just become Luisa Del Vecchio. You're like, I still want to hold on to, because Chachi says in this, I've never had a father before, a father at Christmas so I don't know the whole backstory of Chachi's dad, but I do know that Luisa kept the name, because at least listed here, it says Luisa Arcola Del Vecchio. Now, in another, this is what's funny to me, in another Wikipedia wiki, it says her name was Luisa Fonzarelli Del Vecchio because they're cousins with Fonzie. No, Luisa Fonzarelli. Then she would have been Arcola. Now she would have been Del Vecchio. But here's where I lose it, because there's another family there, the Mastorellis, and it's friggin' Art Matrano. Yes, you might know Art Matrano from multiple things. I know him 100% as Captain Mauser, Yowza, from Police Academy 2 and Police Academy 3. He came in kind of when Harris, they I guess maybe they thought they were going to get away from Lieutenant Harris, which is just ridiculous. But he plays a character named Rico Mastorelli, and he's Chachi's mother's brother. So that means her name, her maiden name should be Mastorelli. So you can't say, oh, Arcola, maybe that's her maiden name and she never married and he never had a dad ever. Nope, it's Arcola. Is obviously the dad's name, because Mastorelli is her maiden name and Fonzarelli doesn't count at all. So again, these are shows that are 50 years old, 40 and 50 years old. So maybe I'm overthinking it, but that's the point of podcasts, isn't it? For the most part, I feel like the point of podcast is to overthink about the things you love. So they are a musical act. Al marries Chachi's mother, and they open this shop together. Now, did I read correctly that at one point they were running the diner? So maybe they were an item on Happy Days. I don't remember that at all. I don't remember that. I feel like I need to go back. There are a lot of holes, especially in those later seasons, when you got Flick, and you got Crystal Bernard, and you got like Jenny Piccolo becomes like a real character in the show. You got Eugene, and you got Roger, and Fonzie's got a beard, and he's teaching children. There's just a lot going on to keep that show going. But I don't remember if they were an item before or if it just sparked itself when they went to the spinoff. But of course, Luisa, I'm not sure, is played by Ellen Travolta, who technically plays Scott Baio's mother on 3 different shows: Happy Days, Joanie Loves Chachi, and Charles in Charge. Yes, she played Charles's mother on Charles in Charge. And yes, she is John Travolta's sister. I remember as a kid, she looked older, so I always assumed it was John Travolta's mother, not realizing, no, John Travolta is not a young man either. He just looked like a young man because you watched Grease over and over and over again. And Welcome Back, Kotter. So where was I? So Ellen Travolta and Al Molinaro, they are now in love. Al Del Vecchio and Luisa, they open a club, and Chachi and Joanie move there to become a big musical act in Chicago, and they play the club, and it shows in the opening credits. And Uncle Rico is the not that Uncle Rico. There was a first Uncle Rico. He doesn't throw a football, but he's the loud, boisterous Art Matrano. He's in every episode. He's in almost every episode. It says 16 out of the 17 episodes, and it's also kind of nepotism because the band is made up of 2 of his children, Mario and Annette, played by Daryl Morey and Winifred Friedman. And then there was another guy in the band named Bingo, I think played the drums. And this is the 60s, and he's definitely playing Spicoli in the 80s. Like, hey, man, how's it going? Because, again, they kind of gave up on the 70s and the 60s and just like, we're in the 60s, but we're also in the 80s. They were the weakest part of this show, the surrounding cast. Like, it felt like the show, at least this episode, the show was all about Al. Like, yes, Joanie and Chachi are there, but this was all about Al. He was the star of at least this episode. And this is like the second, I think they had 1 or 2 episodes after this before their season ended, their series ended, and they were canceled. And Chachi and Joanie moved back to Milwaukee to be, with their family. And Al never really quite showed up again. He was in like an episode here or an episode there, but that was kind of it. I just assumed he came back and they're like, thanks, Pat Morita, and Pat Morita's like, that's cool. I got a script about some Karate Kid. I don't know. I'm going to go deal with that right now. Instead, I guess maybe Arnold stayed until the end. Again, I don't remember, but I must know. I must find out. What I didn't see in this episode was Mr. and Mrs. Cunningham, though they were in a couple episodes. Fonzie, of course, made an appearance. They made little guest appearances, obviously, to kick off the show. They were mentioned. They were definitely mentioned because Joanie called home and called her parents, but we didn't see them. But at least we got a tie to the Cunningham, so it's still sort of a Cunningham Christmas. Now, Al, the big deal is Al wants this to be his first special Christmas with all of them. And Uncle Rico comes in and makes like it all about him spending all this money for all these expensive gifts. While Al got like Chachi a baseball that he caught when he was a kid, got it signed by all the Cubs. Oh, I guess it wasn't a kid because they're in Chicago. So recently he got it signed by all the Cubs. And then, of course, Chachi gives him a big kiss. A lot of kissing. It was very emotional, very, very free of their like physical emotion towards all their family members. Kissing Rico, kissing Al, kissing Mom, everybody. Kissing Joanie, I think. Maybe he didn't. I don't remember. Can you tell I'm like shot out of a cannon because there's nobody here and I can be loud and boisterous without anyone interrupting me. And I've had like 3 cups of coffee. So boom, I'm excited. Wow. There was a guy in this episode who I believe is the guy who got eaten by the dinosaur in Jurassic Park. The guy who got eaten on the porta potty, the outhouse there. Okay. Anyway, that just caught my eye. Oh, Jessica Walter was in an episode too. I saw a picture of that and I thought maybe she was in multiple episodes. Nope, just in one. So where the hell was I? Calm down, Mike. Take a breath. I feel like if people are listening to this on 1.5 or 2 times speed, they're barely. Don't worry, I'm going at 1.5, 2 times speed. You don't even need it. So where was I? So Al wanted Christmas to be about, spending time with the family, but Chachi wanted to see if they got booked on this big radio show. And it turns out Uncle Rico, the big gift was he did book them on this radio show on Christmas. They get to play the Christmas show, which is hence the title. Al wasn't excited about that. He wanted Christmas at home with everybody. Oh, there was a yawn. I tried to suppress it. Even in the middle of the day, it happens. Even with all the coffee, it happens. So Al's not crazy about this, but he decides, okay, we can do it. Let's go to the let's all go together. I'll drive. He drives the Sweet Pickles bus, the VW bus, and it's really dumb because Al doesn't like this. There's a snowstorm. Al's nervous. He's driving really slow, and it's so bad that you can see out of the corner of the TV, of the screen, there's like a snow on the ground and nothing's moving. They're not driving. They couldn't even crop it right or give you a screen in the background to make it even give the illusion that this van is going anywhere. It was really poorly done. But all of a sudden he's thinking, let's pick up this hitchhiker. They have a packed van. Okay, it's a VW van with him and his wife in the front. You got Joanie and Chachi. You got Uncle Rico. You got the band. That's 3 other people. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 people. And Al didn't want to do this, and now he wants to pick up someone on a hitchhiker, and then he needs to move out of the way for another car, and he goes, someone else picked him up. Oh, he hit a bump, and it would have been hilarious if they're like, oh, there goes the hitchhiker. Like, I thought they hit the hitchhiker. I made the joke. That would have been a little too dark, but or was that the hitchhiker? At least make a comment. Nope, he got out of the way. Or it turns out it wasn't a hitchhiker. It was just a log or something, something stupid like that. Instead, somehow they got stuck. And when the camera pulls out, this van looks like it was driven off the road up on a hill in the snow. It was just dumb. So then the band, some of the 2 guys in the band go off to try to get help. and they come back frozen. Nothing really happens there. There's fighting, there's arguing, and it ends up that they're all sitting by the fire on Christmas Eve, and they sing the first Noel. Uncle Rico talks about how he didn't get a gift as a kid because he wanted to make sure that the other kid got a gift. And Chachi's mother's like, I was the other kid. You didn't get a gift for me. You are generous. You're a big old softy. He's like, hey. And there was a moment he's like, Al and I came up, during the Depression. It was hard. We had it rough. It made us tough. But they're like, you're a big softy. Joanie got a movie camera. Chachi got a stereo, and Joanie got a movie camera. And it's funny that both of those things are in my pocket right now, and you don't need either of them. And she was all excited shooting movies the whole time, kind of oblivious of everything going on until they said, you're being really good about this considering you're not going to see your family on Christmas, because she's going back Christmas Day, and that got her depressed. Again, these two characters, Joanie and Chachi are the main characters, and they were just kind of there for Al and Uncle Rico to kind of run the show, and they didn't do much. They were like side roles, supporting roles in their own show, and I think that's the problem with the show. Maybe both characters aren't that great to begin with, like as far as really filling up a show. Yeah, Chachi will go back and kind of become one of the main parts of Happy Days, but it's one of. There would be 2 or 3 stories going on. And he could be part of it with Joanie, and with this show and them having to run the show and actually do the show. It didn't quite hit the exact same way. So it kind of ended with just them sitting around the fire singing the first Noel. And and Chachi's like, this is my first Christmas with a dad, and he gives Al a big hug. So Al finally has a family. Everyone's happy. Everything's good. So it was a nice, sweet little ending, but I kind of thought I was going to enjoy it more. I thought, you know what? I'm going to get that nostalgic feeling from these characters, and it's going to kind of bypass the fact that the show wasn't a success. And it wasn't quite the case. There was little sparks of that, little moments of it, but nothing was quite hit as where I thought it would. There was a funny moment. There was only funny. I don't think it meant to be funny, as far as Al was talking about on some Christmas, his old Christmases, he used to, this did make me laugh. He used to get a TV dinner for himself. And wasn't he the Stouffer's guy for years? Didn't he do TV dinner commercials? And then he would go to the drugstore and read the Christmas cards to himself. I thought that was funny, as far as how his Christmases used to be sad. But then there was later he was talking about how he used to go look in the window of people and see how they had their perfect Christmas, and that's what he wanted, and that's what he wanted this year, but it's not happening. But then he realizes he's having his perfect Christmas. As I may have mentioned, this episode is from 1982, specifically December 16th, 1982. So let's look at what else was on TV on the major networks that evening. This is 1982, so there are only 3 major networks. What would I, or could I, or was I watching at this time? Again, it's 1982, so there's a chance I was not watching anything, because I am 6 years old at this point, so I'm probably already asleep. But as far as the shows that I did watch, there were some on there, most notably on NBC. At 8 o'clock to 9, there was Fame. I didn't watch that. And then from 9 to 9:30, a brand new episode of Cheers, followed by a brand new episode of Taxi, which I'm pretty sure is the episode that I covered with Eric just last year, if I'm correct. Then followed by a brand new episode at 10 p.m. of Hill Street Blues. Now, I remember watching Taxi as a kid and Cheers kind of as a kid, but not like religiously. Cheers came later. And then on CBS, 3-hour-long dramas, I guess you could say, or action dramas. None of them I watched. At 8 p.m., a brand new episode of Magnum P.I., followed by a new Simon & Simon, and then at 10 p.m., Knots Landing. On ABC, there were shows that I remember watching. There was one show I kind of remember watching, but it might have been in reruns as well. At 8 p.m., Joanie Loves Chachi, this episode that we covered tonight, which I'm sure I watched some of the episodes. I must have. But again, I'm 6 years old at this point, so it might have kind of been like later on, maybe TBS will throw some Joanie Loves Chachi shows on when they finish they cycle through their Happy Days episodes. At 8:30, Star of the Family, never heard of it. At 9 p.m., a brand new Too Close for Comfort with Jim J. Bullock as Monroe. Then at 9:30, It Takes Two, which I don't remember at all, but I saw commercials for it while I was looking up commercials for Joanie Loves Chachi. And then at 10 p.m., an episode of 2020. That's really it for as far as what was on TV that night. So, as I said, the show wasn't a success. I looked up on Wikipedia, and there were some comments. It seemed like neither Joanie nor Chachi really wanted to do it all that much. Scott Baio and Aaron Moran. So Scott Baio said all the Happy Days people had written the first 4 episodes when the show got picked up for a series, but when they left to go back to Happy Days, we were stuck with new writers who didn't really know us, so that was a problem. And then some of the people on the show had chemical issues, and that was a problem. I'm wondering if he's talking about Aaron Moran. I don't know. I know she had issues over the years, and then later, I don't know if it dealt with her, what led to her passing away, but I know that they weren't all that close. I read an interview where he had a show about 10, 15 years ago on Nickelodeon, like See Dad Run. And they said, would you ever think about, reuniting with your old castmate, having her on the show? And he said something like, I don't think so. We tried to reach out over the years, tried to help her, but she's made her own bed and she needs to lie in it. And, that's a little harsh, but even him saying this, like they had chemical issues and that was a problem. Now, when was this article? This article was back in 2014, back when Scott Baio talked Chachi and Bob Loblaw, and I'll get there in a moment. He says it was just on and on and on, and wait a minute, what does he say? Oh, they had chemical issues and that was a problem. It was just on and on and on, and it just sort of crumbled and fell apart. In retrospect, if given the choice again, I would not have done that show. That was just the wrong idea. If I had to do it all over again, I would have waited until Happy Days was over until I did anything else. I think that is smart. Aaron Moran said, I liked working with the people, but I didn't even want to do it. I wanted to stay on Happy Days. They were running them at the same time. So, yeah, that's an interesting too, when the spinoff is happening at the same time and a character leaves. Think about it. So they're contracted to be on this show. Maybe it's like, look, we're going to give you a spinoff. You're going to go do this own show. And they don't really have that star power to say anything or do anything about it. So they kind of were stuck doing it. And look, back then, back in the 80s and the 90s, and even in the early 2000s, I kind of loved Scott Baio. And not because he was something like this great actor, but it was the nostalgic stuff of Happy Days. And then every day after school, I used to watch, like in grammar school and junior high, I used to watch Charles in Charge, and I thought it was hilarious. Now looking back, there's some funny moments, and I've already covered Scott Baio for the show with a episode of Charles in Charge, and of course I loved Nicole Eggert on the show. It was just like there was it was a show that I quite enjoyed at the time, and I remember thinking, Scott Baio, he still got it. And then he comes out and Ron Howard brings him in as a bit part on Arrested Development as lawyer Bob Loblaw. He brought in Henry Winkler as a lawyer. It was great. We know Henry Winkler is just great. Then he brings in Scott Baio as attorney Bob Loblaw. His first name was Bob. His last name was Loblaw. And he was a lawyer, so it was Bob Loblaw. Bob Loblaw. That's what it was. Say that 5 times fast. Bob Loblaw. And I thought he was great on it. And then you come to see these, I knew he was a womanizer. He was like, oh, I dated this girl. I felt like girls would get off the bus in Hollywood and Scott Baio would be waiting, holding a sign. It wouldn't say their name. It would just say latest young lady from Hollywood. So I knew him that he was, kind of a womanizer early on, but I chalked that up as youth and the 80s. And then you see there was some talk of abuse, like Nicole Eggert that accused him of. And then you come to see I don't want to hear Scott Baio's political opinions. that's where the internet and social media, it allowed you to learn things about people that you didn't want to know about and you might not like, and it makes you sour on them immensely. And then the fact that you see, not only does he have opinions, but he's like used to like speak at things and talk about things. I'm like, really? I don't give a crap about that. So character-wise, the characters he played, big fans of him over the years. Outside of that, the luster has worn off, I should say. And then he was a little harsh, I think, just talking about Erin Moran. But unfortunately, she had later passed away. Now, when did she pass away? It wasn't, and she had rough times towards the end. And even then, she at some point she was at like the Happy Days reunion, I think. But then later she was like, I don't want to be part of this. I think she called them demons or something like that. Like she had some, I'm guessing some sort of mental health issues as well, substance abuse. And this was her thing. She was Joanie. She played Joanie on Happy Days. She played Joanie on Joanie Loves Chachi. And there wasn't much going on after that, really. And it's funny. My God, she was only 56 when she passed away. And I'm like, okay, that's like, half a decade away, a little longer. Like there wasn't, that doesn't feel old anymore. 56 used to feel old, but no, not anymore now. I don't even know complications. She had throat cancer. Jesus, I didn't even know that. But no illegal narcotics were involved in her death, and no illegal substances were found at her home. Oh, that's just, what a sad, just a sad end to, she was shortcake. She was Fonzie's shortcake. This cute little kid on a family in the 70s and in through the 80s. But, after Happy Days, there really wasn't, she'd show up on Love Boat. She'd show up as guest spots here and there over the years, for years. In 2007, she was in the reunion episode, the reunion in 2005. 2007, there was a show called Scott Baio is 45 and single, and she showed up as herself in Scott Baio Hires a Life Coach. So there must have been a point, unless they were fighting in that episode, there must have been a point where they at least got along pretty well. So I don't know, again, how things ended with Scott and Erin, but I do know this. That's reality. Sitcoms are not reality. And in the sitcom world, to this day, they're happily married. To this day, Chachi loves Joanie. And to this day, Joanie loves Chachi. And I think with bringing it full circle, that's it. I think I nailed it. I think I discussed Joanie Loves Chachi and the Happy Days universe as much as I possibly can. Well, who knows? I could probably go on and on. But this Joanie Loves Chachi does not deserve the December 25th spot. It just doesn't. But I'm glad I was able to bring it up. I'm glad I was able to find it. Now, it's not available on streaming anywhere. Someone posted the episode on YouTube. It's kind of low quality. So whenever that's the case, I like to look on archive.org, and somebody put the entire series up. They ripped the DVD, they put it up on archive.org. I don't know if that's legal or not, so I'm not going to put a link to it in the show notes because I don't want it to be taken down, but it's up there. If you want to Google search it, you could probably find it. It's not perfect, but it's pretty good quality for a show that's, from 40 years ago that, was probably ripped at not a very high level as far as, it wasn't a high quality DVD transfer to begin with. It's not 4K, it's not Blu-ray, it's not HD, but it's pretty good. So you can find it. If you want to find it, it's out there. I'm just happy that I was able to talk about this world, this universe, one final time. And with that, I say happy Saturday, everybody. And I look forward to talking more Christmas sitcoms with you tomorrow. I've been holding onto this one for almost 2 years. I found it last year and I was like, I can't do it because I'm doing another Happy Days one. I can't do it this year, but I will hold it for 2025. And oh boy, am I glad that I did. So that is it. And I am done until tomorrow. So until then, you can find me on all the socials at Geek Mentality, except TikTok, which is Geek Mentality Mike. You can find us on Facebook at Fans.Experts, on YouTube at Fans.Experts. That's because the website is fansnotexperts.com. Joanie loves Chachi. I love Christmas sitcoms, so I'll be back talking about it again tomorrow. But until then, thank you for listening. Thank you for subscribing. I'll see you tomorrow. And until then, here is, you can tell I'm home alone, here is my theme song.
This is my podcast, I made it. Geek Mentality's what I named it. And I think you should listen and subscribe. Cause I'm kinda funny and awesome. I think that I'm worth your time. And I'm kinda handsome. My mom says, please listen.
Merry Christmas.
Please listen to this episode.
Fans Not Experts.